Before I get into tonight's stories, I want you to do something for me. I want you to think about the last time you stayed somewhere unfamiliar. A motel, a roadside inn, someplace you'd never been before and would probably never go back to. Think about the moment you walked into that room, the smell, the lighting, the way the door locked behind you. Think about how you just accepted it. You trusted that you were safe. You put your bag down. You sat on a bed that 1,000 strangers had slept in before you, and you closed your eyes. Most of the time, nothing happens. Most of the time, you wake up, you check out, and you never think about it again. But every once in a while, someone checks into a place and something goes wrong. Something shifts, and by the time they realize it, it's almost too late. Tonight, I have 3 of those stories. 3 true experiences, submitted by real people. And I promise you, by the time this is over, you will never look at a motel the same way again. This happened to me in the summer of 2019. I was 28 years old, freshly hired at a tech company in Oklahoma City, and I was driving cross-country from Colorado to start my new life. I had everything I owned packed into my car. It was supposed to be an exciting trip, a new chapter, a new beginning. But by hour 11 on the road, with nothing but flat highway stretching out in every direction, excitement had turned into pure exhaustion. My eyes were doing that thing where they'd close for just a fraction of a second and then snap back open. Every time it happened, my heart would jump. I knew I couldn't keep going. I pulled off at the next exit I saw, exit 187 if I remember correctly, and the only thing there was a gas station with half its lights out, a diner that had clearly been closed for years, and a motel, the Sunridge Inn. Except the sign had 2 letters burned out, so it just read, Sun IDGNN. Looking back, I think about how that sign was almost like a warning, like the place itself was broken in some fundamental way. And I just drove right past that warning and pulled into the parking lot. There were maybe 4 cars in the lot. The motel had 2 floors, maybe 20 rooms total. Small operation. The kind of place that survives on desperation. People like me who have no other option. I sat in my car for a second before going in. Something about the place made me hesitate. The parking lot lights were dim, one of them buzzing and flickering at irregular intervals. A trash can near the entrance had been knocked over and nobody had picked it up. I told myself I was tired and being paranoid. I grabbed my overnight bag and went inside. The woman at the front desk looked like she hadn't slept since last Tuesday. She was in her 60s, maybe, with deep lines around her mouth and eyes that barely registered my presence when I walked in. She didn't say hello. She just looked up, waited for me to speak, and when I asked for a room, she turned to her computer without a word. She slid me a key across the counter, an actual metal key, not a card. I remember thinking the last time I saw a key like that was at my grandmother's house. She told me I was in room 11. Checkout at 10, breakfast not included, Wi-Fi was down. I thanked her. She didn't respond. I walked down the hallway toward room 11. The hallway was long, longer than it needed to be for a motel this small, and the carpet was that specific shade of dark red that motels use because it hides stains. The walls had wallpaper that was peeling at the corners. The fluorescent light above me buzzed softly, and that's when I passed room 9. The door wasn't fully closed. Not open, but not latched either. Just slightly ajar. Maybe an inch, maybe 2. And through that gap, I could see the faint yellow edge of a bathroom light. Someone was in there, I assumed. Someone who hadn't pulled their door all the way shut. I didn't stop. I didn't stare. I walked past and went to my room. Room 11 was exactly what I expected. 2 double beds, a TV that probably got 4 channels, a bathroom with grout that had turned gray with age, and a window AC unit that rattled when I turned it on. I didn't care about any of it. I set my bag on the chair, locked the deadbolt, put the chain on, and was horizontal within 5 minutes. Within 10, I was completely unconscious, dead asleep, the kind of sleep that only comes from genuine physical exhaustion. I don't know what woke me up. There was no sound at first. I just came to consciousness suddenly and completely, like a switch being flipped. My phone said 2:47 a.m. The room was dark. The AC had cycled off. And then I heard it. A sound coming from the wall to my left. Not a knock, not a bang. More like a slow, deliberate dragging sound. Like something dense and heavy being pulled across a floor. It would drag for 3 or 4 seconds, then stop. Then start again. Like someone was moving furniture. Like someone was rearranging a room at 3 in the morning for no reason I could understand. I lay completely still and listened. The dragging continued for maybe 2 minutes, then stopped entirely. Silence. My heart was pounding. I watched the ceiling. I told myself it was nothing. The people in room 9 had woken up and moved their bags around or something. Normal explanation. Go back to sleep. And I almost did. My eyes were getting heavy. The silence stretched on. And then the knock came. 3 times. Soft. Deliberate. On my door. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I counted to 60 in my head. Nothing. Silence again. Then exactly the same. 3 knocks. Same rhythm. Same softness. Not frantic. Not loud. Patient. Like whoever it was on the other side of that door had all the time in the world and was completely certain I would eventually open it. I got up. I moved to the door as quietly as I possibly could, and I looked through the peephole. There was a man standing in the hallway. Gray hoodie, medium build. He wasn't looking at my door, he was looking down the hall, toward the exit. Just standing there, completely still. Not pacing, not checking his phone, not doing anything that a normal person does when they're standing in a motel hallway at 3 in the morning. Just standing. I watched him through that peephole for what I think was close to 2 full minutes. He never knocked again. He never moved toward my door. He never looked at it. He just stood in that hallway like he was waiting for something only he could see. Eventually, slowly, he turned and walked back toward room 9. He stepped inside. The door closed. I heard no click of a lock. I stood at my peephole for another 5 minutes after that, watching the empty hallway, before I finally moved away from the door. I did not sleep for the rest of the night. I turned on every light in the room. I sat in the corner with my back against the wall, my car keys in my hand, and I watched that door until the gray light of morning started coming through the curtains. At 6 a.m. I packed up my bag, walked to the front desk, and as casually as I could manage, I asked the same woman, who looked like she had never left that desk, if anyone was staying in room 9. She looked at her screen. She typed something, and then she said, without any particular emotion, "Room 9 has been vacant for a week." I walked out of that motel without saying another word. I got in my car. I drove 40 miles to the next city, checked into a Hampton Inn, and paid $180 for a room I barely used because I couldn't sleep anyway. Room 9 was vacant, which means that man had no key, which means that man had no reason to be in that hallway, which means that open door, the one I walked past when I checked in, was either how he got in or how he was waiting to get out. I don't know which. I don't know who he was. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know what he was dragging across that floor at 2:47 in the morning in a room he had no right to be in. And I have thought about it, genuinely, obsessively thought about it almost every day since. My husband Marcus and I had been married for 2 years when this happened. We're not dramatic people. We don't believe in ghosts. We don't spook easily. I say this because I want you to understand that what I'm about to describe genuinely shook us, 2 rational, level-headed adults, in a way that we still talk about today. It was October. We'd driven to Memphis for a college friend's wedding. A beautiful outdoor ceremony, open bar, the whole thing. By the time we said goodbye and got on the road home to Nashville, it was nearly midnight and Marcus had definitely had more drinks than was wise for a 2-hour drive. We decided to stop. The smart decision. The responsible decision. The Blue Lantern Motel was the only option for miles. A squat, single-story building just off the interstate, 8 or 9 rooms in a row, a flickering vacancy sign, and a parking lot that had maybe 3 other cars in it. From the outside it looked fine. Not nice, but fine. "We've stayed in worse," I told Marcus. He agreed. We went in. The man at the front desk introduced himself. I won't use his real name. He was somewhere in his 40s, heavyset, with a smile that was just slightly too wide for the situation. He complimented Marcus's watch within 30 seconds of us walking in, asked where we were coming from, where we were headed, how long we'd been married. These aren't unusual questions, but the way he asked them felt like more than small talk. It felt like he was cataloging us, building a file in his head. I nudged Marcus's arm and he picked up on it and started giving short answers. Our room was at the far end of the building. Ground floor. The room itself was dated. Floral bedspread, wood-paneled walls, a TV from 2008, but it was clean enough. Marcus was asleep within minutes of his head hitting the pillow. I stayed up a little longer, scrolling my phone, then turned the lamp off. The room went dark. Heavy curtains covered the window completely. Outside, silence. I fell asleep. I don't know exactly what time it was when Marcus woke me up. He pressed his hand flat on my arm, not shaking me, just pressing. His signal for pay attention right now. I came awake immediately. He was lying completely still on his back, staring at the ceiling. His voice was barely above a breath when he said, "Don't look at the window. Don't move. Someone is outside." My entire body went cold. We were on the ground floor. Marcus told me he'd woken up a few minutes before me. Something had pulled him out of sleep. He couldn't explain what. And when he opened his eyes, he'd seen it. A shadow moving across the thin gap at the edge of the curtain. Slow, deliberate, back and forth, like something pacing outside our window. He'd watched it for 3 full minutes before waking me up. 3 minutes of lying there watching a shadow pace in front of our ground floor window at whatever o'clock in the morning. He counted to 3. He threw the curtain open, and there she was, a woman, standing maybe 1 foot from the glass. She wasn't pressed against it. She was just standing in the narrow strip of grass between the building and the parking lot, completely still, facing our window directly. She looked to be in her mid-50s. She was wearing a housecoat, the kind older women wear around the house. Her hair was down and slightly disheveled. And her face had absolutely no expression on it. Not fear at being caught, not surprise, not anger, nothing. She just looked at us. Marcus yelled through the glass, "What do you want? What are you doing?" His voice was loud enough that I flinched. She didn't. She blinked. 1 slow blink, and then she turned around and walked, slowly, around the corner of the building, and she was gone. We sat there for a moment in absolute silence. Then we both started talking at once. We called the front desk. The man who answered, and I am almost certain it was the same chatty clerk from check-in, did not sound alarmed. He said he'd look into it in a tone that suggested he would absolutely not be looking into it. We did not go back to sleep. We sat on our beds with the lights on and the TV turned to a news channel. Something loud and normal and real, and we waited. At 5 a.m. Marcus said, "Let's go," and we went. We checked out with nobody at the desk. We left the key in the slot. We drove home in the gray pre-dawn and didn't stop once. We reported it properly when we got home, called the motel, called the local non-emergency line, filed what amounted to a very unsatisfying report that went nowhere. But here's the thing that we still can't let go of. The thing that comes back to us randomly in the middle of dinner or right before sleep. If Marcus hadn't woken up on his own, if that instinct hadn't pulled him out of sleep, we never would have known she was there. We would have slept through the entire night completely unaware that someone was standing inches from our window, watching us. And she could have been there for an hour before Marcus woke up. She could have been there since we turned the lights off. We will never know how long she watched us sleep. I need to start this story by establishing something about myself, because context matters here. I am not someone who gets rattled. I've been in sales for 11 years. I travel constantly 15, sometimes 18 days a month. I have stayed in motels in every corner of this country, from the Florida Panhandle to rural Montana. I have dealt with broken locks, cockroaches, neighbors who screamed at each other all night, a fire alarm at 3 a.m. that turned out to be someone burning microwave popcorn. None of it has ever genuinely scared me. What happened at the Desert Rest Inn in New Mexico scared me. It was a Wednesday in March. My meeting in Albuquerque had run 3 hours over schedule. and by the time I was on the road, it was already past 9. I had a flight out of El Paso the next morning, which meant I needed somewhere to sleep between here and there. The Desert Rest Inn appeared on my Maps app as the only option for a 30-mile stretch. The photos online made it look passable. I booked it on my phone while driving. That was mistake number 1. The motel was exactly as run down as you'd expect from a place with a 3-star rating in the middle of the New Mexico desert. Single story, 12 rooms, a vending machine with a cracked display. The man at the desk was pleasant enough. Quiet, efficient, didn't overstay the interaction. He gave me room 7 and I walked down the exterior corridor to find it. The room smelled like stale air conditioning and carpet cleaner. But it was clean. The bed was made. The lock worked. I told myself this was fine. The first thing I noticed, the thing that registered immediately even through my exhaustion, was the connecting door. In the left wall of the room, there was an interior door. You know the kind, hotels put them in so families can book adjacent rooms and move between them. This one was old. Wooden frame, brass fixtures that had gone slightly green with age. And it had 2 locks on my side, a deadbolt and a chain latch. Both were engaged. I checked them both. I actually put my hand on the door itself and pushed slightly, just to feel it was solid in its frame. It was locked tight. I went about my routine, got ready for bed, and fell asleep with the TV on low. I'm a light sleeper on the road. Years of travel have made me sensitive to sounds that don't belong. A door in the wrong hallway, an engine outside that idles too long. So when something pulled me out of sleep that night, I came awake fast and completely. The TV had turned itself off on a timer. The room was dark, and something was different. The air was different, cooler than it should have been, with a faint movement to it, like a very gentle current. Like a window or door somewhere had changed the pressure in the room. I sat up, I looked around, and then I saw it. The connecting door was open. Not much, maybe 4 inches, maybe 5, but it was open. I know with absolute certainty it had been locked when I fell asleep. I had checked it myself. Both locks, my side, engaged, and now it was open 4 inches, showing nothing but blackness in the room beyond. I did not move. I sat in my bed in the dark and I stared at that gap and I tried to find the rational explanation. Faulty lock, old hardware. Maybe the deadbolt hadn't caught properly. Maybe the chain had slipped. I ran through every possibility, and then I heard the breathing. It was quiet. That's what made it so disturbing. It wasn't labored breathing. It wasn't heavy breathing. It wasn't the breathing of someone trying to be heard. It was just the normal, soft, regular breathing of a person standing still. In the dark, on the other side of a door that should have been locked. Someone was standing in that room in the dark, and they were just breathing. And they had been there long enough, quietly enough, that they had heard me wake up and they had not run. I want to be very clear about what I felt in that moment. It wasn't panic. Panic makes you loud and irrational. What I felt was a cold, crystalline, absolute clarity. I needed to get help without alerting whoever was in that room that I was doing so. I moved my hand to my phone on the nightstand, slowly, without looking at it, keeping my eyes on that door, and I dialed the front desk. When someone picked up, I spoke very quietly. I need someone to come to my room right now. Do not knock loudly. Call me back on this number when you're outside. I sat there for what the call log later told me was 6 minutes. 6 minutes of watching that dark gap in the door. The breathing continued for the first few minutes, then stopped. The silence that replaced it was somehow worse. My phone buzzed, a call back. Someone was outside. I said, loudly and clearly, loud enough for the other room to hear, "Come in, I called you," and I heard it. A soft shuffle of movement from behind the connecting door. Then a click. The desk worker, a young guy, maybe 22, came in and I pointed at the connecting door without saying a word. He used his master key. He opened the door fully and reached in to hit the light switch. The room next to mine was empty, bare. According to their system, it had been unoccupied for 2 nights. But the window, the exterior window on the far wall, was open, and the curtains were moving slightly in the night air. And on the carpet, just inside the connecting door, in the space where someone would have been standing, muddy footprints. 2 sets. One trail coming from the window, one trail going back out. The police came. They were professional, thorough, and ultimately unable to do anything. No crime had been technically committed, nothing stolen, nobody physically harmed. Whoever had been in that room had gone back out the window before the desk worker opened the door. The report exists. The footprints were documented. And that is where it ends officially. Unofficially, in my head, in the place I can't turn off at night, it doesn't end there. Because I keep thinking about what they were waiting for. I keep thinking about what would have happened if I had slept through it. I carry a door security bar now, every single trip. It is the first thing out of my bag when I check in anywhere. 3 people, 3 states, 3 completely different circumstances. Tyler alone in Oklahoma, exhausted from a cross-country drive. Kayla and Marcus stopping for one night after a wedding celebration. Daniel, an experienced traveler who thought he'd seen everything. None of them did anything wrong. None of them were careless. They just stopped somewhere for the night. They just trusted that a locked door meant they were safe. And in each case, that trust turned out to be wrong. The locks didn't hold. The darkness outside wasn't empty. The room next door wasn't vacant. If you take anything from tonight, anything at all, let it be this: awareness is not paranoia. Checking your locks is not irrational. Trusting your instincts when something feels wrong is not weakness. The people in these stories who got out okay, they listened to that feeling. They didn't push it down. They didn't talk themselves out of it. They acted. Stay aware. Trust yourself. And if you have a story of your own, something that happened in a place that was supposed to be safe, the link to submit is in the description. I read every single one. Stay safe out there. And maybe, just maybe, spring for the hotel next time.